Billionaire sees black girl crying with a sign, need a dad for father-daughter dance. What if a little girl's simple plea for a father's love led to a billionaire's redemption, and a family's second chance at happiness? Maya Johnson, 9 years old, sat on the park bench, her sneakers scuffing the dirt in slow, deliberate circles. Her braids, tied with a vibrant purple scrunchie, swayed as she shifted, her small frame dwarfed by the weight of her emotions. The cardboard sign on her lap read, "Need a dad for father-daughter dance," the letters uneven, as if her hands had trembled with every stroke. Her brown eyes, usually bright with mischief, were dull, brimming with tears she refused to let fall. She didn't want to be seen crying. Not here, not now. But the ache in her chest was a living thing, clawing at her. At school, the father-daughter dance was all anyone could talk about. Girls in her 4th grade class buzzed with excitement, swapping stories of their dads practicing dance moves or promising to buy them sparkly dresses. Maya had smiled through it, nodding along, but each word was a dagger. She had no stories to share, no dad to twirl her under the gym lights. She didn't even have a face to picture when she thought of the word, father. All she had was her mom, Deja, who worked 16-hour shifts at the hospital, her hands rough from cleaning bedpans but gentle when braiding Maya's hair at night. Deja was Maya's everything, her rock, her storyteller, her safe haven. At 32, Deja Johnson carried herself with a quiet strength, her warm brown skin glowing even under fluorescent hospital lights. Her laugh could fill a room, but her eyes often held a shadow of exhaustion. She'd grown up in a rough neighborhood, learning early to fend for herself after her own parents struggled to make ends meet. Maya's father had been a brief chapter in Deja's life, gone before Maya was born, leaving no trace except a void. Deja never spoke of him, and Maya had learned not to ask. But the dance loomed like a storm cloud, and Maya couldn't escape the longing for someone to fill that empty space. The idea for the sign had come in a moment of quiet desperation. Maya had been doodling in her notebook, trying to ignore the sting of her classmates' chatter, when she'd grabbed a piece of cardboard from the recycling bin and scribbled the words. It was a foolish hope, she knew. Dads didn't just appear in parks like stray dogs looking for a home. But as she sat there, watching families pass by, she clung to the fantasy that someone might see her sign and care. The park was alive around her. Kids shrieked as they chased each other across the grass, their parents chatting on nearby benches. A jogger zipped past, earbuds in, lost in his own world. Maya's fingers tightened around the sign, her heart thudding with a mix of hope and fear. What if no one stopped? What if they laughed? But she stayed, her small act of courage holding her to that bench. Ethan Caldwell was not a man who paused. At 42, he was a tech mogul whose name echoed through Silicon Valley like a thunderclap. Caldwell Enterprises had redefined cloud computing, making him a billionaire by 35 and a legend by 40. But the cost of his empire was steep. His marriage had collapsed under the weight of his relentless ambition, and his daughter, Lily, now 16, was a ghost in his life. Their last conversation, 3 years ago, had been a screaming match. "You love your stupid company more than me," Lily had shouted, her voice breaking as she stormed out. Ethan hadn't followed. He'd told himself she was better off with her mother, that he wasn't built for family. But deep down, he knew he'd failed her. Today, Ethan was in the park by chance, his driver taking a shortcut to avoid a traffic snarl. He'd been headed to a meeting about a merger that could double his company's reach, his phone buzzing with urgent emails. Needing a break from the screen, he'd stepped out to walk, his polished shoes out of place on the park's gravel paths. His mind was still on profit margins when he saw her, the girl on the bench, her sign a jolt to his system. "Need a dad for father-daughter dance." The words hit Ethan like a rogue wave. He stopped, his breath catching. He should have kept walking. He had no business meddling in a stranger's life. But her face, those wide, hopeful eyes, glistening with unshed tears, pierced him. She reminded him of Lily at that age, back when she'd climb into his lap and beg for stories. Before he'd traded those moments for boardroom victories. Against his better judgment, Ethan approached the bench. "Hi," he said, his voice softer than he'd meant. "I'm Ethan. What's the deal with the sign?" Maya looked up, startled, her fingers tightening on the cardboard. "It's for a dance at my school," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's for fathers and daughters, but I don't have a dad. I thought maybe." She trailed off, her eyes dropping to her sneakers. Ethan's throat tightened. He wasn't good with kids. He wasn't good with feelings, period. But something about Maya's raw honesty disarmed him. "What's your name?" he asked, sitting on the bench, leaving space between them. "Maya," she said, glancing at him warily. "Maya Johnson." "Well, Maya Johnson," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "I'm no dancer, but I've got a suit and an evening free. What if I took you to that dance?" Maya's eyes widened, a flicker of hope breaking through her doubt. "You'd do that? For real?" Ethan nodded, though his mind screamed warnings. What was he doing? He wasn't her father. He wasn't anyone's father, not in any way that mattered. But Maya's smile, small, tentative, radiant, silenced his doubts. "For real," he said. "But we've got to clear it with your mom first." The week before the dance was a test for everyone. Maya couldn't stop talking about Ethan, her excitement bubbling over like a shaken soda can. She practiced twirling in her room, imagining the gym lights sparkling above her. But Deja was skeptical. A billionaire volunteering to take her daughter to a school dance? It sounded like a headline waiting to happen. When Ethan arrived at their cramped apartment to meet her, Deja stood with her arms crossed, her nurse's scrubs still on from a long shift. "I don't know what your angle is," Deja said, her voice sharp but steady. "But Maya's my world. You hurt her, and you'll wish you hadn't." Ethan met her gaze, his usual confidence replaced by something humbler. "I get it. I just want to give her a good night. No strings." Deja studied him, searching for a catch. There was something familiar about him, a fleeting memory she couldn't pin down. She pushed it aside, focusing on Maya's hopeful eyes. "All right," she said finally. "But I'll be at the dance. Watching." Ethan spent the week preparing in ways that surprised even him. He called his assistant, Sarah, who had a daughter Maya's age, and asked for advice on buying a dress. Sarah, amused but touched, helped him pick a sparkly blue one that matched Maya's purple scrunchie. Ethan even practiced dance steps in his penthouse, feeling absurd as he shuffled to a playlist of pop songs. For the first time in years, his life wasn't defined by stock prices or deadlines. It was about a little girl who needed someone to show up. Maya, meanwhile, was a bundle of nerves and excitement. She tried on her new dress every night, twirling in front of the mirror until Deja laughed and told her to save some energy for the dance. Maya didn't know much about Ethan, just that he was rich and kind of serious, but he'd promised to be there, and that was enough. She imagined walking into the gym, her hand in his, feeling like she belonged. The school gym was a sea of fairy lights and balloons, the air thick with the scent of punch and perfume. Maya stood at the entrance, her hand in Ethan's, her heart pounding. Her blue dress shimmered under the lights, and her braids were adorned with tiny star clips Deja had found at a discount store. Ethan, in a tailored suit, looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, but his smile was warm as he led her inside. The dance floor was alive with fathers and daughters, some swaying gracefully, others stumbling through steps with laughter. Maya's nerves melted as Ethan spun her gently, his awkward moves making her giggle. "You're not that bad," she teased when he stepped on her toes. "I'm trying," Ethan said, grinning. "You're the pro here." Other parents noticed them, whispering about the billionaire who'd shown up for a stranger's kid. Deja watched from a folding chair, her arms still crossed but her expression softening. Maya's joy was undeniable, her laughter ringing out over the music. Deja felt a pang of gratitude, and something else, something she wasn't ready to name. During a break, Maya and Ethan grabbed punch from a table covered in paper hearts. Deja approached, her guard still up but her curiosity winning. "You're good with her," she said, almost grudgingly. "She makes it easy," Ethan replied, sipping his punch. "She's a great kid." Deja's eyes narrowed. That nagging sense of familiarity was back, stronger now. "Have we met before?" she asked suddenly. Ethan frowned, studying her face. I don't think so. I'd remember. But Deja wasn't convinced. As the night wore on, she pieced it together. Years ago, when she was 16, she'd worked as a housekeeper to help her mom pay bills. One of her jobs had been for the Caldwells, a wealthy family in their old neighborhood. Ethan had been the son, always holed up in his room, tinkering with computers. She hadn't known him well, he'd been distant, consumed by his own world, but the memory clicked into place. "You're Ethan Caldwell," she said quietly, pulling him aside during a slow song. "Your parents lived on Oak Street, didn't they?" Ethan's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I cleaned your house," Deja said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I was just a kid, trying to make ends meet. You barely looked at me back then." Ethan's mind raced. He vaguely remembered a quiet girl who'd worked for his parents, always slipping in and out without a word. Could that have been Deja? The realization hit him hard. Their lives had crossed before, long before Maya, long before he'd lost himself to ambition. As the dance continued, Ethan found himself watching Deja as much as Maya. There was a strength in her, a fire that reminded him of what he'd lost in his own life. Maya's joy was infectious, but it also cut deep, stirring memories of Lily. He hadn't spoken to his daughter in years, hadn't known how to bridge the gap he'd created. But dancing with Maya, laughing with her, he felt a spark of what could have been, what still could be. After the dance, Ethan drove Maya and Deja home in his sleek black car, the city lights blurring past. The ride was quiet, the radio playing softly. When they reached their apartment, Ethan hesitated, then spoke. "I want to help," he said, his voice raw. "Not just tonight. Tutors, college funds, whatever Maya needs. Not because I'm some rich guy looking for a photo op. Because she deserves it. And because I've got a lot to make up for." Deja's instinct was to shut him down. She'd never taken handouts, never trusted easily. But there was something in Ethan's eyes, a vulnerability she hadn't expected. "Why us?" she asked. "Why now?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Because Maya reminds me of my daughter, Lily. I haven't been there for her, and it's my biggest regret. Helping Maya, it's a start. A way to fix what I've broken in my own life." The twist wasn't just their shared history. It was the realization that Ethan's offer wasn't about money, it was about redemption. And for Deja, it was a chance to let someone in, to trust that not all help came with a catch. But trust was a battle. She'd built walls to protect herself and Maya, and letting Ethan in meant risking everything. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a steady presence. He showed up to Maya's soccer games, cheering louder than anyone. He helped her with math homework, patiently explaining fractions until she got it. He even taught her basic coding, watching her eyes light up as she made a pixelated star move across a screen. Deja watched, her skepticism softening but never fully gone. They started meeting for coffee, talking about their pasts, the neighborhood they'd both known, the dreams they'd buried, the mistakes they'd made. One night, Ethan opened up about Lily. "I was a terrible father," he admitted, stirring his coffee. "I thought I was building a legacy for her, but I was just pushing her away. I don't even know where to start fixing it." Deja nodded, her own walls cracking. "I've been scared my whole life of not being enough for Maya," she said. "Every shift I work, every bill I pay, it's for her. But I can't give her a dad. And that kills me." Their conversations grew deeper, their connection stronger. But Deja held back, unsure if she could trust Ethan's intentions, or her own feelings. One evening, Ethan made a decision that would change everything. He called Lily, his hands shaking as he dialed. The call was awkward, filled with long pauses and halting apologies. "I messed up, Lily," he said, his voice breaking. "I want to be in your life, if you'll let me." Lily was guarded, her hurt still raw, but she agreed to meet. It was a small step, but for Ethan, it was everything. He told Maya about it at her next soccer game, his voice quiet but hopeful. "You made me want to try again," he said. "You showed me what I was missing." Maya beamed, hugging him tightly. "You're pretty okay, Ethan," she said, and he laughed. his heart lighter than it had been in years. But the real climax came when Ethan sat down with Deja one night, Maya asleep in the next room. "I want to be here for you both," he said. "Not just with money. With time, with whatever you'll let me give. I know we've got history, and I know you don't trust easily. But I'm not going anywhere." Deja's breath caught. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let him in. But fear held her back. "I've been burned before, Ethan," she said. "I can't let Maya get hurt. Or me." Ethan nodded, his eyes steady. "I know. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. Just, don't shut me out." It was a moment of raw vulnerability, a crossroads for them both. Deja didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. And that was enough for now. Months passed, and their lives wove together in quiet, meaningful ways. Ethan became a fixture at Maya's games, her school events, her life. He didn't try to be her dad, he didn't need to. He was Ethan, her friend, her champion. Maya thrived, her confidence growing with every goal she scored, every coding project she finished. Deja started a nursing degree, something she'd put off for years. Ethan offered to help with tuition, and after a long internal battle, she accepted, not as charity, but as a partnership. Their coffee dates turned into dinners, then movie nights with Maya, the three of them laughing over popcorn and bad action films. Ethan's relationship with Lily grew too, one careful step at a time. They met for ice cream, then dinners, then a weekend trip to the coast. It wasn't perfect, there were still arguments, still pain, but it was real. Lily started joining Ethan at Maya's games, her guarded smiles softening with each visit. One spring afternoon, at Maya's championship soccer game, the stands were packed. Ethan and Lily cheered side by side, their voices mingling with Deja's. When Maya scored the winning goal, the crowd erupted, but Maya ran straight to them, her face glowing with pride. "Did you see that?" she shouted, her braids bouncing. "We saw," Ethan said, ruffling her hair. "You're a superstar." Deja's hand brushed Ethan's, a quiet gesture that said more than words. For the first time, she felt whole, not because Ethan had fixed anything, but because they'd built something together. A family, not bound by blood or obligation, but by choice. The park bench where it all began was empty now, its wood weathered by time. The cardboard sign was long gone, but its impact lingered. Ethan funded a community program for kids like Maya, ensuring no child felt left out at school events. He called it Maya's Stars, a nod to the clips she'd worn at the dance. Deja finished her nursing degree, her pride matched only by Maya's when she pinned the graduation cap on her mom. Maya, now 10, still danced, sometimes in her room, sometimes with Ethan at community events. She didn't need a dad to feel complete, but she had Ethan, and that was more than enough. Lily, too, found her place, her bond with her father fragile but growing stronger every day. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, real, full of doubts and small victories. But it was theirs. As the sun set over the soccer field, Maya looked at Ethan, Deja, and Lily, her heart full. She'd wanted a dad for a dance, but she'd found something better, a family that chose her, and that she chose back. Theirs was a story of second chances, of walls broken down, of love that didn't need a name. And for anyone who'd seen that sign in the park, it was a reminder. Sometimes, the smallest act of courage can spark a lifetime of change.